Good day. Well, in today's video is follow-up from class. With that, the focus is going to be on ArcGIS Pro and doing a couple different select by attributes and select by location. So introducing a new one, select by location, but integrating some of the steps we've done up to this point. With that, it's also related to the assignment that's in Blackboard, so you can download the Word doc. I'm not going to go through the exact assignment because that's obviously going to give you all the answers to what I want you to do. But with that, I'm still going to use the school zone. So it's going to focus on Little Rock. That's why I have the data portal open. With that though, we have a file here that I want to download the school zones for Little Rock. So I'm going to make a new folder. And just call it video week 7. I'm going to put that in there and save it. It's going to be a zip file, so I'll have to open that here in a second. But with that, there's a couple other files I want to download and just get in the habit of showing you. So for your own projects, you can go through and start messing with this yourself. So I can exit out of Blackboard itself. And here I also ask you to download the city boundary. So this is the city limit itself. Let's see if it'll still come up with that. Nope, a little sensitive to the spelling. But here we go. We have City of Little Rock boundaries here. You can see it's a GIS map here. It does have, depending on how you search it, there's another one that says spring of 2021. That's fine for what we're doing today. But when we click on Little Rock, this one will give you the ability to export as a shapefile. This makes your life easier and what we want to download it as. So if we click that, specify it to the same folder, I'm going to put city limit afterwards just so I know what this folder is going to be saved as. We'll go through here at the end when I have all the files and extract them together. But with that, I also asked everyone in the class to download the crime data and some 311 data. But with that, I had a caveat of using the feature online. So if I type in, I don't have to type in, I can just come down to basic city services and come into 311 service request. Instead of downloading it, taking it into Excel or even in Arc Pro to do selections and filters out, I asked them to download 2022 year only, so the calendar year of those only. With that, if you're on the 311 page, you can go ahead and say view source data, and you can search for this as well and view data. With that, you could export this all to GIS, and you could do a select by attribute in there and do a calendar year or contains 2023. You could do it in Excel all of that way. With that though, you also have options. I want to switch back to grid view because I'm just used to it, and this should be what pops up on your screen. But with that, if we come over to filter, and we want to apply a filter, and this is just going to be, we're going to do it based on when the ticket was created. So we're going to change this to created date, and we're going to say instead of is, we want to give it between, and it will auto generate a calendar for you. So if I click on that first one, we just have to direct it back to January of 2022. Click the first. And there's 2 different ways you can do this for the full year. So you could select, because I'm going to show this, it goes until 12 a.m. on the 1st. So everything would go up until 11:59. Or if you were to choose December 31st, you would actually have to go in and change this to 11:59, and change this to PM. I do it this way just out of habit of how I've done it. But you can see once I clicked out of it, it does restrict our data set here to only 2022 311 requests. And you can see here we have different types, and we'll get into this within Arc Pro, but we have an issue type and then a subcategory based on that. So this is what you can select out based on if you want to look at a specific type of 311 request in the city. With that, many of you in class saw the export and it's like, well, shit, I saw shapefile. You get this because it's not saved. Not a huge deal. We're not going to cover that now because you're not signed in or anything. You can still do a CSV for Excel. With that, we're going to be able to open this directly into Arc Pro, and we'll go over that here in a second. But to start off, I'm just going to put LR for Little Rock 311 2022 calendar year with CY. Hit save. Now I'm going to do a very similar process and focus on the crime incidents themselves. If I go back to the main page, come down to the public safety or safe city. And this is where we've downloaded this data many times already. Mine's already purpled out. You can see I've selected it multiple times. You can see it was updated early last week. end of February, so we don't have March data in it, but that's fine. We still want to restrict our data to only 2022. So again, we're going to apply another filter, same as before. This one just has our incident date, so we're going to say is between again, and change it up to January of 2022. And come down to December 31st, 2022. Change those timestamps again, just in case there is one that happens in the last few seconds or it gets put into the system. So once I click outside of it, it updates, and you can see now we're only restricted to or limited to 2022 calendar year. Again, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to export this as a CSV for Excel. Little Rock crime 2022 calendar year. So we're good to go there. So I'm going to close out. I have the data files that I want for now. With that, I have ArcPro open, but I'm going to bring over my folder here. So now I need to extract, and keep in mind, if you're on a computer on campus, you have to use 7-zip, and you can still extract files. I just need to extract all here, and I'm saving it to the same folder, and it will just have its subfolder within it. You can see it's not named the best. We'll change that in ArcPro. I'm going to do the same part with the school zones here. Pull it back over, and you can see it's saving to the same folder. We're good to go there, and it has our zone blocks. And it's actually a very cool data set for the feeder systems of the schools. With that, I'm going to create a new project to work in. So this is just going to be video week 7. I'm going to save this in that same folder I have my data for this video in. Click OK, and it's going to load our base map for us. Many times we've covered this before, and now we need to add data. So as a reminder, we're not going to click add folder here. If you've gone in and already done folder connections, you can use it this way. But if not, we're up in our map tab up here. We want to add some data files. So this is a Little Rock folder. I need to go to my courses, spatial, video week 7. To start off with, I'm going to bring in both of my CSVs, so I can hold down Shift and select both of those. Going to add those, you can see it's in a standalone table, and now I want to add in the city boundaries along with the schools. So city boundary, add that in, then I'm going to come back and go and grab my school block zones. With that, I'm going to uncheck this one, and you can see the city label's not that great. So if I just double click, come into our name up here, Little Rock boundary. Anything to where you can identify what it is, a lot easier than the geo export name that it gives it over here. With that, for our purposes, I don't need it to be filled. I just want it to have an outline. So if I double click or single click, it will bring up the symbology over here. I just want a black outline. Good to go there, so I'm happy. With that, what we did in class, and where a lot of people got confused on how it looked, is I did turn on my zone block here. With that, if I were to open this symbology and come back, it's a single symbol. So everything within it has the same color to it. But if you look in it, and this is where I say it's a cool data set, it shows you the feeder pattern. So from elementary to middle to high school itself. So we know what elementary feeds what middle school, and then what middle school feeds what high school, but also from elementary to high school through these. For the purposes and to make my life easier for a project we have going on in the city, I asked you to focus on Stevens Elementary, so I'm going to color it based on a unique value. That is the elementary itself. So if I change my primary single symbol to a unique value, right now it picked up object ID. I want it to be elementary. So it's going to auto update for us and apply a color palette to it, trying to give a unique color to each one. Obviously, it's not that easy all the time, but you can go in and change it. With that though, since I know Stevens is the area I'm interested in, it's here in the map, and we'll pull it out here in a second. But this is where we got to in class, kind of just showing that there are variations in what you're looking at here. With that, we still have 2 standalone tables that don't have GIS data. So a lot of people in class were opening this table in here and trying to do select by attributes based on a sub-issue category type. And it was getting a lot of issues. Keep in mind, you brought in the table, but so far it's not being displayed in ArcPro. With that, when I say display, that's on purpose. So if you were to right click on one of these files, you want to actually display the latitude, longitude, XY data that's attached to this. Little Rock is good that it supplies the latitude and longitude of both 311 and crime data. If I click on display XY data, it's pretty good at self-filling latitude and longitude. We're good there. And this is where you can change the name of the file that's being exported if you would like to. I'm okay with how it's being saved right now. Click OK, and now we're going to see a bunch of points pop up for the calendar year of 2022 with some warnings of missing data for it. Don't be surprised by that. Not everything has the lat and long to it. We'll deal with that with the crime data as well. But you can see overall, quite a few in this attribute table, just over 100,000 311 requests in the calendar year of 2022. I'm going to do the same part now for the crime data. I want to display the XY data. It picks up lat and long for me, so we're good to go there. It's going to generate that, still have similar issues of lat and long. Not shocking, keep in mind, not everything has an address reported to it as a crime, but it does show up in the incident rows itself. With that now, we have two data sets associated with calendar year of 2022 for the city of Little Rock. This is where I asked the students to do different selections, to select out based on subsets within the data set itself, based on some type of variable within it. When I say that, one of the columns, be it weapon type, crime type, call type for 311 data, and also within our zone blocks, a specific school itself. So with that, let's cover some of these, and then we'll do select by location just to go over some of the different ways you can select data itself. So here, we're pretty good to go with our boundary data itself. We have our Stevens zone that we want to extract out. So if I were to open up this attribute table for our zone here, we're in good shape. You can see now that we have all this up here. Select by attribute should be a pretty common one that we're using quite a bit. And with select by attribute, we want to do a new selection where our elementary is equal to, and it will select our street out for us here. And this is going to be Stevens. If you want to see what this looks like in SQL, you can just click that over and it gives you the syntax behind what's going on. If I hit apply, you can see we have 43 blocks or block zones selected. Once we have those selected, we want to export these out as a separate layer. With that, it's only going to be these 43 selected ones. So if I want to right click on the file that I want to export from. So this is the original file. I want a subset of this. So I'm going to right click, data, export features. And I'm going to just give this a new name within the week 7 folder, Stevens zone. Hit save. We're good to go there. And I'm actually going to turn off the whole city layer. So now I'm just left with the Stevens one. You might see this and like, well, why does it have all the other names attached to it? We can come over here in the symbology since Stevens is highlighted, change this back just a single symbol, and we're good to go. It goes away and reverts back to what we want to see it as. So now we have a subset of data that's specifically Stevens Elementary. So we have a zone, a boundary file, a polygon. Later in the semester, we'll get into how to dissolve this and make it just 1 versus 43. So we're not as concerned with each individual zone as much as the entire area of it. But for now, we're good to go. Now you might be interested in selecting out how many crimes occurred within Stevens Elementary. We can do this a number of different ways, but I want you to get in the habit early on of how to select out based on location and create new layers. So with that, let's start with our crime data. So I'm going to open up this attribute table and say I was interested in ag assaults and homicides occurring within Stevens Elementary zone. So I'm going to do a select by attribute, and I want to select out based on offense description. You could use the code if you're familiar with that. This is still going to be is equal to. I'm going to select ag assault. I'm going to add a clause, and this is or, because I want ag assault or homicide. So offense description is equal to, and this one's going to be the murder and non-negligent manslaughter. Hit apply, and you can see we have just over 3,000 for 2022 highlighted. I want to export these out again. Since these are selected, these are the only ones I'm going to select out. I just want to double check, and you can see I made a mistake myself. I have 3,049 selected, but I have a total of 3,092. That's because I did not clear my elementary zone one when I first did it. So I'm just going to hit clear up here, start over so I have a fresh slate so these zones aren't selected. Do the same one, it pops up so I can just hit OK, get the same number, and we're good to go there. 3049 matches our 3049 down here. Right click, data, export, and this is just going to be my ag assault, homicide 2022. Click OK. Exit out, and you can see anytime you see the clear option up here and it's not grayed out, means I have something selected. So if I were to turn on this crime layer, you can see I have all of those same ones selected. I want to clear that out and then turn that off to where I'm just left with my ag assault and homicide. I can change this to be a different color to make life a bit easier, and I can even put, let's see if it comes up. Aggravated assault, all styles. It did not come up. Do we have crime? There we go. What do we have? Let's just do some type of a smaller attack one. There we go. Changes it a little bit for us so we can see. With that though, let's go over our first select by location. This one we're going to do a within. So with that, we want to select by location. We want to select how many ag assaults and homicides there are within Stevens Elementary Zone. So with that, we know we've done select by attributes, but this is a spatial software, so we can probably do a select by location as well. With that, we're going to go into our select by location, and it already has our input feature as the one we want. So remember, we want to select based on this. So we want to identify how many or which ag assaults and homicides in 2022 were within our Stevens Elementary Zone. So it's not intersect. We want to change this to within. So truly within. What we're selecting based off is that Stevens Elementary Zone. So I'm good there. I don't need to add a distance. This is truly within. Going to hit apply. So you can see all of these are highlighted over here. There's actually 442 selected. So if I were to open this attribute table, it's going to highlight the 442 for us. Now, if you keep in mind, this is 442 out of 3,049. So I'm going to cover, this is kind of supplemental. I'm going to open up the calculator here real quick of how to calculate the percent of total. So we have 442 divided by 3049. You can times it by 100 to see what percentage. So here we have about 14.5% of all ag assault and homicides occurred within this area in the city itself. So a good understanding of how much violence is occurring within this elementary zone itself. For our purposes today, I won't get into it, but you can use this similar process to get into developing a crime location quotient to identify if there's disproportionality in crime occurrence, violence occurrence, given the patterns across the entire city. Is it higher or lower, on par with what you would expect, with one as kind of the equal value there. With that, since we have these selected, similar to when you did a select by attribute, when you do a select by location, I can make a subset based on this. So if I want to export out, reminder that I want to export from my total calendar year of the ag assault and homicide, so the smaller data set from all crime. Come up to data, I want to export features. I'm going to label this as ag assault, homicide, Stevens Zone only 2022. Use whatever file name makes sense to you. I have my own naming process, doesn't make sense to everyone all the time. Hit save, click OK. And now I'm going to clear my selection. I can do it if I have the attribute table open as well. So if I were to turn off this layer, the full citywide one, I'm left with a subset of data. So when I zoom in, you can see where these are located. Similarly, I can change my symbology to just have this as an outline. You can see where everything's going here, and what Little Rock's oftentimes known for is the Central High itself. This is where I did my PhD, over here in this area. But overall, a fairly violent area for Little Rock as a whole. Can get in that another time. But for now, we've gone through how to import data, how to display XY, select different attributes based on the data itself. Also how to do a selection by location. With that, I just realized I forgot one other factor that I should have downloaded, from the data portal. So if I bring this over, data.littlerock, for the class, I had them go ahead and do the vacant properties. So if I grab the vacant structures, I'll download this and export it real quick as a shapefile. It comes with the Latin long for us, so we're good to go. I now need to just unzip that. There we are. We're good to go. I'll rename this in there. But we've done a select by location based on being within. When I open this up, this is where the relationship's pretty interesting. You have the options to do other types of selections based on a spatial location. Intersects, we deal with a lot of distance within. We'll get to buffers, but you can still select based on a distance. Contains within, boundary touches. So we have options here. So keep in mind, it's not always just simply contains within or distance. You have different ones here depending on the type of data that you're working with. And if you ever have questions with these, we'll get into it throughout the semester, but feel free to reach out. I oftentimes also have their center in this, so the centroid, the XY center point for any polygon is pretty helpful at times as well. But with that, I'm going to add in my data file. Now, this more times than not, we see this issue in class of I just downloaded a data file, extracted it, go to add in Arc Pro, and it's not there. Shit, what am I doing wrong? Keep in mind, you've had Arc Pro open, you've been working in it, so it needs to be refreshed, it needs to be updated. So with that, if you hit F5 on your keyboard, all it is telling Arc Pro to refresh and see if anything's changed. With that, you can see my folder's now up here, so I can go in my Unsafe, add this in, and I'm going to change this name again just to be Unsafe, Vacant, and we're good to go now. So all the purple ones that popped up, we can see what those look like, even within our same area that we're zoomed in on. So if we wanted to do a same analysis in terms of selecting out based on location, let's now do the unsafe and vacant properties that are within our same school zone. Hit apply there, and I need to open this attribute table. I just exit out, it would have shown us too. We see 111 out of 510 are located within the same elementary zone. So again, if you want to know the percentage of total, 111 divided by 510 times it by 100 if you want to see the actual amount. So about 22% of all unsafe and vacant properties in the city of Little Rock are located just in this one elementary school zone itself. So this is where I would highly recommend, if you are doing more advanced work in it, get into just calculating a crime location quotient. Not terribly difficult. I can link to it in the video itself, or in the comments or the description of it. Would recommend it. It's a great discussion tool that you can do relatively easily, just looking at the proportionality based on the area and what you're selecting from it. With that, we now have two examples how to select within a specified area. We selected out and made Stevens its own elementary as a boundary file, but now say we're interested in, I'm going to turn on my unsafe and vacant properties, turn off my Stevens zone. Let's change this to a house. So change that just in house, and you can see that there are some outside, and we had this with the crime data in 311. It's a product of the data. We'll get into cleaning data later on, but we can also do a select based on the city boundary itself. When I say that, if we just wanted to do select unsafe and vacant within, we would change Stevens zone to the Little Rock boundary. And you can see we have 370 selected. So we have some that are outside of the city boundaries itself. And my guess is some of these probably don't have great Latin long attached to it. Yep. So some of these don't even have the latitude and longitude attached to it, which is fine. That's where we'll get into lovely geocoding and the tedious task of that. But we're good to go, just as another example of how to select based on location. But for now, let's do select based on location, select by location, but do a distance one. So say we're interested, I'm going to turn back on our ag assault and homicides of 2022. Say we're interested in knowing how many ag assaults and homicide occur within a specific distance of some of these unsafe and vacant properties. So I can do another select by location. This time I want my top one to be my ag assault and homicides of 2022. I want to change within to within a distance. And my selecting feature now is the unsafe and vacant properties. This is where I need to specify my search distance. You might see decimal degrees and wonder, well, what the hell am I doing with this? It gives you other options to work in here. We'll get into projections of data and that. But for now, we can do miles. And say I was interested in a half mile, which is quite a large search distance for this, but I can put in 0.5 there. Hit apply, and you can see it's selected out 2,307. Ag assault and homicide occurred within about a half mile of an unsafe and vacant property. You can see even the distribution of the houses is not in our West Little Rock area, not a huge shock there. But you can see that's a good proportion. Remember, we just had over 3,000 total ones. So we have a high proportion or percentage here. And I already closed out of the calculator. But if we did this one, it would be 2,307 divided by 3049 times 100. And we're going to see that just about 76% of all ag assault and homicides occur within a half mile of an unsafe or vacant property. This is not saying they explain them or are related to them fully. That's a very large search area given the average street segment in Little Rock's about 430 feet. So it is a larger search radius, but at least gives an example of how you can use the distance as a selection feature for it. You can save those out if you wanted to as well. With that, let's go over kind of all this again, but with our 311 data just to show how you could select out some of this. So I'm going to turn off our ag assault data. Still interested in our unsafe and vacant properties, but let's open up our attribute table for this lovely data set that has over 100,000 311 requests. And let's use it based on our subcategory type. So we want to make a subset out of this. We could select all from within here, but it's quite a large data set, so I'm always a fan of making subsets of that. So let's do a select by attribute where our subcategory is equal to, and it will generate all of these for us. And let's do graffiti on a structure. I haven't honestly looked at this in a long time, so I just am interested to see what it looks like. Again, if you want to see what it looks like in SQL, you're just specifying based on the variable names, what do you want it to equal to, what it's selecting based on. Hit apply. 17 total, so we don't have a lot, but let's go ahead and look at this in relation to our unsafe and vacant properties. Click OK, and we have those 17. You can see the blue highlighted dots in there. They're not plentiful, but they're there. We can still export these. So I'm right clicking on that 301 layer, data export feature. And this is going to be our graffiti here. 311, 2022. And we're good to go here. Click OK. I'm now going to turn off the total 311, so this larger one. And you can see below our little green dots here. And let's see how many. Let's change it up and do another select by location. Let's see how close they are based on another one. So we have graffiti in here. We still want to change it based on within a distance of our unsafe and vacant. And let's do a distance of miles again, but let's do 1/8 there. And let's do a quarter to make it more similar to your homework. You can see here we have 26 actually selected. So we have a smaller search radius. Remember when we used well, I didn't get rid of my original selection, so let's hit clear. Rerun that one. Have 9 selected from here, so just over half of those graffiti incidents that were reported. You can see code violation and what it's reported to down here. Just over 50% are within a quarter mile of our unsafe and vacant properties. If you know the literature on blight and what that looks like from a physical signs of disorder side to it as well, and even SEPTED literature as well, a lot of these can co-locate in similar spaces, so it gives you the ability to select out based on a distant feature. Homework, you're dealing with other types of call or 301 data itself. You're selecting these out, you're looking at percent of totals, and then you're making a final map based on Stevens Elementary Zone. But this covers multiple ways to select out based on distance, also within how to go over and export out different layers, be it points or polygons or Stevens Zone. All you would do at the end is then focus on your Stevens Elementary and make a map based on the parameters in the homework. On this zone itself. And if you remember, you can always do zoom to layer to where this is now the focus of it. And you can turn on different layers from there and still make your final map to it. With that, that's all I got for today. Until next time.